Hi everybody, this is the original Josh back again with Kranzle USA, Pressure Washer Perfection. And now we're going to take a look at our pressure switch assembly where we are strictly going to be replacing the micro switch as opposed to the entire assembly. Just for the purposes of this video, we're going to do it with the assembly removed from the pressure washer so that you can, see the pieces a little bit easier. But it's very, it makes a lot of sense just to do this right on the machine so you don't have to necessarily disconnect it when you're just replacing the micro switch by itself. So we're going to begin. You're going to have to unscrew all 6 of the small screws on the housing. I like to break them loose with a screwdriver before I use my screw gun, just so that you don't strip out the Phillips, because it's a really small Phillips bit that goes into this. Now the Germans have done an excellent job in engineering this. They made sure that they use 3/4 inch screws to hold this cover on. So if it's not watertight, I don't know what is. So you'll see when you remove the cover that we have a nice O-ring around the outside. When you remove the cover, if we're replacing the micro switch because it's failed, in many cases it's because it has gotten wet. That can be through the control piston itself, which would enter through the port where the button gets depressed, but it's also possible that it comes in through the outside of the housing if for some reason it got cracked or damaged. If it got cracked or damaged, when we remove this and that reveals some of that evidence, that's going to be an instance where you're going to want to replace the entire housing. But if if this happened to get stuck because maybe you had a weeping gun jet, the machine was short cycling a lot, the machine going in and out of bypass, machine kicking on and off over time, that can also exercise this switch, over-exercise it essentially, and cause it to eventually fail. There's a good 10,000 clicks in this switch, but if you let it click 10,000 times, that can cause it to fail as well. So if we're replacing this because it just failed, it's very rare for it to happen, but you can take and pop it out. When you do so, you can take and notice which terminals the micro switch is attached to in the original housing. So if you look at the back of the switch, there's a diagram for how the terminals operate. The outer 2 terminals, this one and this one, are normally closed, which are the ones that we want to use. When you remove the terminals from this particular switch, it's easiest to do with a pair of needle nose pliers so that you can pry out on the housing. If this switch is starting to fail, sometimes they're cracked and it's more difficult to get the terminal off. When we install our new micro switch, you're going to make sure it's oriented in the wrong direction. It will not fit this way. So we shall reinstall our terminal connections. Line up 2 holes in the micro switch with the 2 pins in the housing. And slide it all the way in. When we reinstall our cover, the pins on the back of the cover are what press the micro switch into place. So now we reinstall the cover. You reinstall 2 screws first to keep the cover lined up. I always recommend hand tightening these screws in first. And once again, you don't have to over tighten them, but you want to make sure that they're evenly tightened. I always make the final snug with a screwdriver because these are really easy to strip out. And that's how you replace your micro switch.
Kranzle USA, Pressure Washer